Heck, check. 1, 2. Checking the audio. Checking the audio. Check. 1, 2. Checking the audio. Check. Okay. We are sounding like we're just fine. Okay, so we're doing a daily. Just fine. Okay, I got audio coming from all over the place here. Hold on. I got audio coming from all over the place here. Can I mute this? How about that? Sweet. Okay, we're good. All right, so daily recap for NQ futures. Today was a crazy day. We dropped like over 780 points today, so that's cool. Crazy market conditions that we're in. But I wanted to do a recap of today's delivery, kind of what I was seeing going into the day. Some of the struggles that I had today, and then in hindsight, kind of maybe what I could look at going forward to capture days like this in the future, where we have these one-sided days, not a lot of room for retracements to get in for continuation, and areas where you would suspect there to be a relatively bigger bounce, possibly back up to a equilibrium point, did not happen, and getting chopped up on those counter trend plays. So coming into the top-down analysis here, let's just go right to the weekly chart. And we did not have this full move where this weekly had flipped lower coming into this morning. So just keep that in mind as I'm explaining this. This was actually, let me just put a box on here to kind of mimic what I'm referring to. So just imagine this candle, as this is printing, this is up here, So, okay, with that being said, I'll just kind of get into the analysis here. So we had this weekly wick on the top here. And if we take a 50% of that, we came up to 50% and rejected off. So Monday, Tuesday delivery came up here and then rejected off. Now, if we go down to the daily, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. We have a daily suspension block right here. So if I put that on here to here, and then also keep in mind where these volume imbalances lie. If your chart does not show these volume imbalances, all you need to do is go to the bottom right. If you're on TradingView, if you're on a different platform, that's going to be something entirely different, and you'll have to look into that because I'm using TradingView here. But there's this set and not set button on the bottom right of your screen. And I actually don't know if, let me alter the OBS. I don't even think that it shows that. Hold on, I apologize. There we go. Let me move that up a little bit. Okay, do you see that now? I think you can. Yeah, okay, so you can now. Okay, so there's the bottom right, there's the set, not set. So see how you don't show the volume imbalances here? If you click it on, you will. So that's something where you can expose those hidden volume imbalances, and that just alters the open close times, I believe, of the actual candle formations. So one thing to keep in mind for ICT concepts, if you want to have the accurate volume imbalances on the daily charts, you want to toggle that on and off just to kind of see where things lie. It will not affect how the candles print on the lower time frame sub daily charts. So with that being said, we have this red line is our weekly. We came up above that. We traded below aggressively. And then we also had our daily suspension block that I have marked out in yellow here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on quadrant levels, and then we can kind of see where we lie. I'm going to get rid of the 0 and 1. Now I know in ICT had a recent video, and the only reason I'm not marking these out, I'll mark it out just to show you, but I wasn't looking at this because I'm not skilled enough to have thought of that. So I've been learning. The more I've been learning more as I go, but I did think this was really cool, and like it makes sense, right? So marking out this wick here instead of this. Shoot. Yeah. And then we trade up to the 8th quadrant of that wick. But just for the sake of what I actually was looking at today, I didn't watch that ICT video until after the market delivered. So I'm just going to go with what I was looking at coming into today. So we have our daily suspension block here with the 8 quadrants overlaid. And then I'm going to go down to the 4-hour and hourly. But just look how we aggressively traded lower. We did not have a super aggressive, let me just put this middle point on here. This candle closed below the mean threshold here. We then trade up to, let me put a quadrant on here. We trade up to an 8th quadrant here, and then we trade down and close. Now look at where the body, I'm going to get rid of this, but look at where the body closed right at the bottom of that daily suspension block. We then trade up, we take out the previous 2 days liquidity, tap off the mean threshold or 50% of the wick of the weekly candle. So the weekly candle wick, I should say. And we're also above the 50% of the suspension block. Okay. That being said, that kind of sets up our narrative for we're looking for a manipulation up into a premium to then take short. Okay. Now, where are we going to go short? Well, coming into this, I had no idea, and I got chopped up today, but in hindsight, it's 2020. But seeing these two bodies right here from, if you go to the 12-hour chart or even like the 4-hour, I believe, but this really shows it clearly. We have this rejection block here. The bodies are right at the same place. So we have this rejection block on the 12-hour. So if we were to come all the way down here, so the first thing I would be looking for would be the new week opening gap to see how we react in that. That would definitely be a draw, right? So if we wanted a trade idea here, we could manipulate up into a premium, start to roll over, and then our draw could be the new week opening gap high. So further targets would be this rejection block, and then we'll go down to the 4-hour here. Okay, so 4-hour, we are in this current legs 4-hour gap, and we are in the lower half of that gap. Okay. Now, if we go down again to the hour, we can refine that down a little bit further. Let me put this on here for H1. All right, so in the hour gap, we've been holding on Thursday and Friday in the lower quadrant and in the lower quadrant of the daily suspension block. We trade lower. We then end up trading higher into the lower quadrant of those PD arrays, and then we move lower. Just kind of like walking myself through this. And then we also have our previous day high here from yesterday between the midnight here to midnight price. That is the high. But we also have the daily candle high that was here. I guess that was the current daily. That's current days, rather. My indicator that I made, it plots both styles, the ICT midnight to midnight style, but also the actual daily candle itself, high and low. So if you're seeing this, the PDH 1800, that's the full daily candles range from high to low. The PDH 0000 is the high to low between the midnight to midnight prices. So a little bit of a distinction there. I'm just gonna check to see. Man, all you get on Kick are these stupid comments of "let's promote you." No, just scam, just spam. Ridiculous. And then nothing on Twitch, obviously, and nothing on YouTube because nobody watches these. Okay, cool. All right. So continuing on with the video. So I'm going to get rid of this hourly gap here. However, let us go down now to the 15-minute. I'm going to get rid of this gaps indicator because this wouldn't have been there. It forms on the 1 minute as soon as 9:30 opens from regular trading, which we can actually look at here in the 15-minute. So regular trading ended here, and then regular trading started again right here. Okay. So let's go back. Okay, so if we're going to look at this from like a market maker model perspective, we had a buy side model be completed, and then we had this accumulation, and then we had a reversal, an expansion, accumulation, expansion, and then we had a possible reversal here, accumulation, maybe an expansion for coming higher tomorrow. I'd like to see this come up to 50% of this range. But carrying on with the price action for this morning, so we ended up making an SMT internal on these highs. So I don't think there was a major SMT with here. Let me pull up my other charts. I have another screen here with more charts on the top. And I'm just going to look at YM to see what YM was doing. So this morning, yeah, okay. I mean, we did make a super massive SMT with YM because while we were dropping here, YM, YM just always does whatever it wants. It's like the crazy sibling. YM was pumping while NQ was dropping precipitously here. So that's something to keep in mind. There was a crack in the three assets. But really what's the main thing that I was seeing, and I do have an indicator that got this. So I'll put the gaps back on and I'll put SMT back on. Okay, so there was SMT here. I'm not really paying attention to this one, pre-market. This actually, its purpose was fulfilled. So you inverse, and then we came up to take all of these relative equal highs here. But just before pre-market, we had this SMT with ES here and here, and then we dropped. So that was a sign of the crack in correlation where we could see a move lower. Now, just look at the quadrant levels here. I'm going to go out to the 5 minute to make this a little bit cleaner of price action to view. I am going to get rid of the SMT indicator. So just remember, I'll actually just put SMT, not necessarily exactly on these candles, but it's in this area here. Okay, so the quadrants in this daily suspension block. Now, just I guess from a narrative perspective, if we are trading at the 50% here, we are rejecting off, trading above, kind of accumulating. We manipulate above this high, and then we kind of slowly grind down to this quadrant level. And basically what this is showing us is all throughout Monday and this morning and overnight, we've been unable to explore and stay in the upper portion of the daily suspension block, right? So we did tap up in there. However, we did not stay up there. So we tapped into the 50%. We then traded away relatively quickly, within a matter of the first 90 minutes of the London Open session. Now, this isn't the kill zones. If you've been watching my stuff, these are not the kill zone sessions. These are the actual times for Asia open to close to London. So just keep that in mind. These are not the ICT kill zone sessions. They are something that I look at, but I tend to just keep the full session on my chart regularly. So, but we did trade away from the 50% of this daily suspension block quadrant level relatively quickly. We then come back up, which I believe this is right at OTE of this leg. Yeah, like smack on. So that's pretty much perfect. We hit the OTE zone, the ICT OTE, right in the 70.5% level. And then we aggressively trade below this low. Now, one of the tells that price was going to be moving relatively quickly towards this low and this low here was that we had a 15-minute inversion right at this leg right here. I'll pull this back up here just to make sure everything's kosher. Yeah, okay. Okay, 15 minutes. Okay, so we had this volume imbalance here. So that means we have the inclusion of this gap here. Let me put this for 15 minute. Okay, so on this candle right here, that is a long position. I want short. That is our first indication that we have inversed a 15-minute gap with relative speed and velocity, targeting this low here. So within the first 15 minutes, we drop precipitously. We then trade for 9:30 open back up. But that inversion in itself is a tell that we could be going lower. And we're already in the narrative mindset that we're in the lower half of the daily suspension block, showing weakness and an unwillingness to explore up to these highs. Because also one thing to note is that the levels that we're trading at for this morning, prior, we had tapped into this daily level that we've all been looking for months, and we could not explore above there aggressively. We immediately rejected off. Now think of this area right here. All of these relative equal highs had such a massive amount of liquidity that trading above here and then having that rejection so aggressively through this daily suspension block is such a heavy-weighted narrative story. You know, obviously this is in hindsight, you know, like I'm just seeing this after the fact, but I'm just trying to like get my head around thinking in this way. But, you know, this is like price screaming at us. Like we tapped into a huge liquidity pool here, and we immediately and aggressively sold off, closing back below, inversing this daily suspension. We then trade up. We can't stay in the upper half. We fail to stay in the upper portion of the daily suspension block. That's telling us that we're going lower. And why was I, why was I chasing longs today? I don't know, because I'm new at this and I don't know what these market conditions are very challenging, and I still have so much more learning to do. But I just think this is so cool to build this narrative of price. So I just wanted to throw that in there as we continue on. Okay, so let's go back down to the lower time frames here and kind of just walk through what actually ended up happening. So we already have our narrative. I was looking for shorts going into the morning. I was looking for shorts to then, have a retracement and then continue long, because I didn't have this full-fledged narrative of the higher time frame like I just broke down for you. So yes, I was looking for shorts, but not for the right reasons, and that is just lack of experience. So that's just something just need more time trading and not giving up. But we inverse this 15-minute here. We then end up trading lower. So let's just go right from market open at 9:30. Okay. 9:30 opens. We have a pretty small opening range gap, which is the regular trading hours close to open from yesterday to this morning. And we just blast through the bottom of that. And we can't, this is again, another fair value gap theory model inside of a model. So we have the daily suspension block that we can't trade up into the upper quadrant. We're holding in the lower, we drop lower. Okay. We have the opening range gap. We can't trade up into the upper quadrant. We hold lower, we drop lower. Okay. So same deal. So the market is telling us that we aggressively are running somewhere lower, right? Now coming down right here, I was seeing this as a move at a equilibrium of a previous leg. Now, mind you, this whole drop here wouldn't have been here at the time. So I'm going to put this on here. And this was exactly what I should not have done. Okay, so coming into this, I was thinking this was halfway between, I'll just put the quadrants on it. Okay, so we had dipped down below this low, this low, this low. There was a quadrant level sitting here. We also had dipped down below this low here. So I was thinking, okay, we're going to see a slight rally. Maybe we could get a move back up to 50% of this range here, inverse this, trade back up here, and, take a quick scalp, right? So whether we're going to go higher or lower, I was hoping that we would at least get back up to equilibrium to rebalance and then go lower. But the market had some place to be today. And with the top-down analysis that I just showed you, that is obviously why. So I'll get rid of this. So I ended up getting destroyed on this trade. And then we came down to the opening, new week opening gap high. So then we chop around in there a little bit. We hold the lower. We trade up, taking out some liquidity a couple times on the buy side. And then we end up trending lower the rest of the day. And longing in here the whole day because I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm just trying to learn. But yeah, so there was this hourly order block here that we didn't really have that much of a reaction to. We were blasting through this. Now, one thing that I do see here is that we do have the hourly inversions here. So I'll put that there. So we traded below here and then we closed this candle below this hourly, meaning that we could likely see us trade towards this low or the low here of the bodies because the bulk of the volume that was traded was in the bodies of the candles here, right? So we do sweep the bodies there. So we did end up taking that sell side liquidity, not sweeping the entire low, but we did sweep the bodies. So that's something that's interesting to me, just seeing that right here. We'll go down to the 15 to see if there's anything else down here that is obvious. And also looking at the OTE levels, this is something that tripped me up today. Let me put the OTE. Yeah, you know me. Okay, so coming down on this one, I tried longing this here. I'm going to pull this out. And then I'll make the lines a little bit thicker so we know what we're dealing with. Okay, so I'm going to go down to the 1 minute here. Just remember this leg to this leg low to this high. The OTE in here are these thicker lines. Go to the 1 minute M1. All right, here we go. Okay, so I longed this as well, and I got a little bit of profit out of this one. But coming down into the 50%, waiting for something to happen, we tap the 62% here. We inverse this, get destroyed. Okay. And then we tap it again. I think there's like a 30-second inverse or something. This one worked out for a little bit of profit to chew backs or to claw back some of the loss today. But all in all, we hit the 70% right here. We hit the 79%, had a small reaction here, and we were just going lower today. And very, very interesting. I know ICT had just had released today analysis video for the price action for today. And yeah, it makes me not feel as bad because the markets apparently are very challenging and being so new. However, reading it in hindsight is, kind of just, you're like, man, but it's okay. I'm proud of myself for being able to see these things have come such a long way in such a short amount of time. This is only my third month of actually trading with real risk on the table as far as prop firms. And yes, the only real risk is the cost of the account, but it's real to me, and emotions are real. So it's something I'm working on. But yeah, so we traded really low today really quickly. And that is such an interesting thing to me. And we had all these hourly order blocks that we didn't really react at, but we did have the rejection block that we then finally had our rejection off of. So kind of the recap of the day's delivery. I think the biggest tell for today was that daily suspension block where we were stuck in the lower quadrant showing weakness. And then we did have some SMT here. I also forgot to mark this up. We had a bigger SMT here with ES. So SMT here, top. Let me go to, I have it on my other screen, but not on the OBS software. Okay, so we had that, and then we'll go back. So SMT here, just another thing in hindsight that I wasn't seeing in the moment. Man, that's something, right? So we had our internal sweep on ES and Q showing weakness here, and just internal SMT, and just dropped. So super interesting here. But yeah, so going into tomorrow, I think I would like to see us rebalance higher. It really depends on what we're going to end up doing overnight. That's obviously always the case. It always depends on what you do overnight because that's how time works. But it's funny, I was talking with some buddies of mine earlier today, and it's always price is either going to go up or down, but we always have these eloquent ways of saying that. And especially with talking with other traders who trade ICT, you can get pretty, I guess, technical. Anything's technical if you really get down to the roots of it. But it's just funny to me. Sometimes I'm thinking I'm yeah, makes sense, blah, blah. And really, really tracking, really saying something important here, but all we're saying is it's going to go up or down. And I know it's much more than that, but it's so funny to me sometimes. Just random thought, but price is going to go up or down. So at least we know that. So that's interesting. It's either going to go, I guess, sideways, but technically it's still up and down. So yeah, so I'm not really sure. I'm feeling a little bit defeated after today, to be honest with you, but I'm not going to quit. I really enjoy this. So I was hoping that there would be some trendline liquidity that was sought after a little bit more aggressively here. And we did have this play in the PM session where we had an inversion that ended up working out. By the time this got here, though, I was cooked. So I was done trading for the day. I couldn't do anymore because I would have just dug the hole a little bit too deep, I think. So, yeah. So that was today's price delivery. Hopefully you guys found that interesting. Whoever ends up watching this in the future, or if no one does, I'll be watching these again in the future to kind of recap at the end of each month to see what I was thinking about, what price was doing, going back to my my old journal trades and stuff, and kind of just analyzing and trying to gather data and become a better trader, because this is this is what I'm doing. There's no questions about it. I'm here. We're doing this. So, all right, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.